everyone, it's Kayla and welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing another speed build and this house is built in Brindleton Bay. It is using only cats and dogs in base game and it's a starter home. I have really been enjoying doing these smaller builds because, as I've said in a few of my previous videos, I took such a long break from building that I forget so much of what is in the catalog. And so because of that, I've been doing limited builds, limited pack builds, and trying to just make the most of all of the objects in the catalog so I can familiarize myself with them again. So this is base game, cats and dogs only. It's also a starter home, and I am using a Pinterest picture. It is heavily inspired by the Pinterest picture I'm using. I will try my best to pop that up on the screen or link it down below. And I loved the beachy coastal vibe of this house. It's like a beachy bungalow almost, or a beachy cottage. And I wanted to use that vibe in this lot because it has the water behind. I think it's a bay, hence the name Brindleton Bay. But it's also nestled in trees. It's just a beautiful lot. This is the lot that automatically comes with a starter home on it. Personally, I'm not a fan of that house, so I just went ahead and bulldozed it and added my own. The picture uses some bright blue window shutters and a more of a yellow siding. But with the shingles, there is no yellow, it's more of a beige. So you'll see that I'll switch it up later on, pretty soon actually, where I will do a blue shingle and then change the windows to white and use some base game curtains to add kind of like a pale butter yellow shutter. I really wanted to use these windows from Cats and Dogs because they are one of my favorites, but they don't have shutters. And so one of my favorite hacks, I can't remember who I learned it from, but one of my favorite hacks is using these blinds that are available in the base game and just alt placing them next to the windows. So that is what I went and did, and you'll see I'm changing the colors everywhere. I also decided to add window boxes, and I think that they just really complete the look. They look super cute. I also added the fireplace that you do see on the Pinterest picture, but I placed mine in a little bit of a different location, I think. Or we may have stuck with the original placement, I can't remember. But now I'm just going to go inside and figure out this floor plan before I do too much outside. And so on the left here, we've got our kitchen slash dining area. And because it was a starter home, I wanted to make sure I used the cheapest kitchen appliances and counters because Cats and Dogs doesn't have all of the cheaper items, and I still wanted to use them. I still wanted to make sure that they were in this build a good amount. So we opted for some pretty cheap appliances, but I think that the base game counters actually worked out well because they are the light blue that the outside of the house is. And one thing about me is I really like to color coordinate my build from the outside all the way to the inside. I don't know why, I just feel like it's really satisfying seeing it all together when it all matches, even though I am very aware that a house in real life probably doesn't, get decorated due to how the outside looks. But in The Sims, I'm a big fan of doing that. So I'm kind of just going to go ahead and jump around a little bit. I do this a lot in my builds when I'm figuring out a floor plan. I get just so focused on making sure I can fit everything in with the floor plan I have, and then I start to place furniture, and I don't know, I'm not a very I guess regimented builder. I kind of just hop around. So I'm sorry if that is hard to watch because I know this is sped up, but I just work better that way. So as you can see, I am using the Cats and Dogs flooring, which I really love. I just love how much texture and wear that the floors have. And I combine that with a lot of other Cats and Dogs furniture items, such as this table and these chairs. I used the rug and the couch and also the console table in the living area. And I love this paneling that we have from Cats and Dogs. It is one of my favorites in the game. So I was very excited to use that so I could bring in some texture and also some other colors indoors. Now I'm just going to finish adding windows for the rest of the house since I figured out my floor plan. And in the bathroom, I opted for a bathtub. In my starter homes, like adding bathtubs if that's all I can afford, because I just feel like it takes up more room. It looks a little bit more luxurious. So that is what I went ahead and did. I really wish that we had one of those showers like in university where it's not enclosed in a shower stall, it's just the shower head and the knobs in base game, because I would use it so much. But nonetheless, we're sticking with the bathtubs. And I'm just putting down a little bit of clutter in here, nothing too crazy. It does kind of look a little blank in the end, but like I said, it's a starter home, so I didn't want to overspend my budget, at least not in the bathroom. And then on this wall here, I'm adding a bookshelf. Another thing about my builds is I only play The Sims to build. I do not ever actually play with Sims. I like to create Sims, but I'm not a gameplay person. I've just always enjoyed it for building. So I never add enough activities or hobbies or things because I don't really know what there is. I don't know what your Sims need to achieve certain skills and things like that. So I kind of just leave that up to y'all. If you decide to download the house and play in it, you can add the character, add the personality, add the hobbies and activities. But at least I always include a bookshelf because I do know your Sims can read. I basically know your Sims can read, they like to watch TV, and a computer is great. But in a starter home, we can't always afford a computer, so there is not one in this house. It took me a while to figure out the color theme of the bedroom because, as I just got finished saying, I really like the color theme to match throughout the entire house, but I was having a really hard time finding a bed from Cats and Dogs that I liked that matched. I also didn't want to bring in the same wallpaper from the rest of the house in the bedroom. I wanted to do something a little different. So I go back in with paneling. We've got a little accent wall as well. These curtains are some of my favorite curtains in the game. They probably look a little bit grandpa-y, but gingham, I think, is just so back in style right now that to me, I think that they are perfect. They're so pretty. So I love the Cats and Dogs curtains. I also love that there's layers, there's ruffles. Some of the best curtains I think we have in the game, honestly. Maybe you don't like it as much because of the swatches, but I love them. And also, in starter homes specifically, I really rely on curtains as decoration because it's cheaper than having to fill up every wall with a painting or wall decoration or anything like that. So windows with curtains is usually my go-to, kind of like how I inundated this room with windows. But don't worry, I do get rid of the window and curtains on the right side because I figured I probably need a better place for a dresser. So it will only have two windows. So I decided to go with a dresser from base game because the Cats and Dogs one was expensive, and this one fit really nicely because it's more of a tall dresser rather than a wide dresser. It also, I feel, matches the Cats and Dogs end table pretty well, so I was excited about that. I also added a standing mirror. I thought about cluttering the top of this dresser, but I kept it very simple. I also just feel like it's such a tall dresser that maybe you wouldn't necessarily want to clutter it, but we just put a plant and a little wicker basket, which seems to be my go-to, but it's a good clutter item, it makes sense, and it's also really inexpensive. And then I add a little bit of a painting here. I do change out the plant for this new one we got that I think it's inspired by West Africa. I can't remember the region. I just know that it's inspired by somewhere in Africa. I loved the items we got with that base game update with the items inspired by Africa, specifically the rug. I feel like I use the rug way too often, but it's just so good. It's the perfect size. It sizes down really well, and it also has the cute little tassels and good neutral swatches. So I hope we get more rugs like that, but then they've got pillows, and yeah, it was a great base game update for sure. So now we're back in the living room, and I am just to the point now where I've got all of my essentials in the build, and now I can decorate a little bit and see what fits in the budget. So kept it really simple with some plants and books. I also did the small TV, of course, because it's not too expensive. And honestly, in The Sims, I think the box TV is so cute. I don't know why. But I am just adding art here and there. I am also someone who reuses art a lot. I blame the base game for that because I don't really love a lot of the art in the base game. And also, some of the art that I do like is so expensive in the base game. So I'm just going to blame The Sims for that. But I do tend to reuse art a lot. So now we are done with the inside. It's time to landscape. I always landscape with debug, even if I'm not doing a budget build. I just think that the debug plants look so much nicer, and you can find all of the surrounding trees and bushes and flowers in debug, which is awesome. I have the Better Build Buy mod from Twisted Mexi, which makes it super easy for me to organize and go through the debug and live edit objects. And it also allows me to use the eyedropper tool so I can duplicate and not have to keep scrolling and going back to the objects. So you'll see I kind of just place everything that I see in the surroundings down as sort of like my one-stop shop to duplicate the item so I don't have to keep scrolling. Now, landscaping is not my strong suit. It takes me a long time to figure out what I want to do. Layering is so difficult for me, and I also just think I'm so picky. Like I feel like when I watch other people landscape and it looks really good, I try to do it myself and I'm like, why can't I execute this correctly? But I tried my best. I went ahead and used the hostas that I don't necessarily see in the surroundings, but they're one of my favorite plants in the game, and they're from cats and dogs, so I had to use it. I also love the vines that are kind of creeping on the ground. They are like my cats and dogs version of the low-lying pale yellow flowers that I use everywhere, and I think they add a lot of interest too. And they make sense in this world because you can see it in the surrounding areas. So I am just doing my best here to layer some plants. I try to add interest by changing height of plants and things like that, but I'm not the best at it, so forgive me. And then for the the terrain, I went with a more sandy dirt because we are on the bay. I assume that is what to expect when you're digging and gardening. Another object I used from the live edit or debug menu are these fence pieces, and I think that they work so perfectly because this is more of a coastal build, and these are some of the fences I would imagine would be on the coast. So I added some of those around, and I also just kept duplicating my landscaping items and kind of just copy and pasting it, but in different formats, changing which ones I layer and how big a plant is in this section and things like that. So I'm just doing that around the build. I did not do a fenced-in backyard, and the reason why is because this lot kind of looks like it just walks off onto the bay. So I just feel that whoever lives here doesn't feel the need to have a nice backyard. They are fine with just walking to the beach. And I'm also now just realizing that I wanted to add a pet and I did not to this house. So I apologize for that, but you can add a pet if you would like. Just a food bowl, litter box if it's a cat, or just a food bowl if it's a dog. I was going to add a dog, but like I said, I forgot. That's okay though. So I am just gonna go ahead and finish the landscaping on the outside, and that is pretty much it for this build. You'll see I do some more terrain paint, not only with the sandy dirt, but also adding some more of a grass texture so that it didn't look so awkward having sandy patches and then really fluffy grass. But I hope y'all enjoyed watching this video. If you did, please thumbs up and subscribe if you would like to see more. I would also love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day or night wherever you are. And I will see y'all next time. Bye.